welcome to the Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame podcast, class of 2018. Thanks for joining us today. I'm Wade Keller. I'm the founder and editor of the Pro Wrestling Torch newsletter, host of the Wade Keller Pro Wrestling podcasts, and I'm joined as co-host today by Bruce Mitchell, who is the Pro Wrestling Torch senior columnist since 1990, also star of the Bruce Mitchell audio show.
Weren't you inducted into this Hall of Fame?
Yes.
I think I was here for that.
You were. I appreciate
what
you
year was
up.
that?
I think class of 2014.
What category? Because I know it wasn't wrestling.
No, it was not wrestling. It was journalism.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Cool.
So we're very pleased to be joined by two esteemed guests. Larry the Axe Hennig, a longtime AWA wrestler and a frequenter of this Hall of Fame. So if you're a regular attendee of this, you know Larry well, and we're glad to have him here again this year to join us on the podcast. And Nikita Koloff is our guest on my left, your right. And we're going to be talking to them about their careers, what they're up to, and hopefully tell some good stories and have some laughs. So, Bruce, I'm going to let you ask the first question to Larry.
Yeah, Larry, as it happens this week, your grandson is one half of the WWE Tag Team Champions and hitting a career peak. Just like that.
About Joe?
Yeah.
Curtis Axel?
Curtis Axel, yes, sir.
Are you wondering how he got his name?
I would really love for you to explain it to me. That'd be awesome.
You don't know.
No, sir.
All right, Curtis is for my son Kurt that wrestle.
Absolutely.
And Axel is for me, Larry the Axe Hennig.
Yes, sir.
So we came up with Curtis Axel.
Who came up with it?
Well, I can tell you who approved it.
There you are.
You know, that Vince, you know, WWE is like a big Ferris wheel, you know, and even to get a seat on it now is tough.
Absolutely.
He's got his $1 billion business, flies around the world in his jet aircraft, private jet aircraft. Got a fleet of buses. He's got more money than Trump.
He does, yeah.
I don't know if Trump is as smart. I think if you put Trump in Vince's place, Vince would win because he is a very smart guy. Some people don't like him, but I'm telling you that I wrestled for, as a matter of fact, I wrestled for his dad.
Right, yes, sir.
In New York.
Yeah.
Madison Square. You know where that is? That's right around the corner from that girls' show.
Yeah, Ali Frazier and all the rest of that. Yes, sir. Yeah.
Well, my wife's here. I forgot.
Oh, yeah. I won't tell if you don't.
But one thing about Vince, as long as we brought it up, or I did.
Yes, sir.
If he told you something, he did it. He said you're going to make so much money, I made so much money.
Right.
Yeah, and brought my family there when they were young. We were staying on the 12th floor, and some guy fell out the window on the 14th floor. The boys wanted to go down and see him. Well, he was deader than a mackerel. People were just walking over him. I said, well, that's how they do it in New York.
I was about to say, New York City. Yeah, yes, sir.
So what was the original question? You said hi to me.
Talk about your relationship with your grandson and
yes, he's doing
mentoring him.
You know, he's been with him 10 years.
I know, yeah.
He's helped him in Florida, you know, and he went to Brad Riggins' camp. He was with Harley's camp.
Right.
He went to Vince's camp in Florida. He just spent $25 million developing that development camp down there. So people say wrestling's dead. Well, it's not in his family. I can tell you that right now. So and people know that. So, but if it's interesting today, let's talk about it. I like to make more people aware of what the hell is going on. Some things I like, some things I don't like, and we'll see as the day goes on, okay? And you got some good-looking people here, and then you got some that are on the margin line. I don't
represent that line.
I'm going to wait till the end to point them out. So.
Okay, good. Yeah, we want to stay. So.
Nikita, Bruce Mitchell watched your career up close from the front row. He was talking about that earlier on. We're going to talk about the Minnesota connection here because we're here in the Midwest. But Larry talked a little bit about his family and how they got in, how his grandson got involved, because his family was involved. How did you get involved in professional wrestling?
That's a great question, and first and foremost, in Larry's introduction, you missed one key element to his introduction, one key word, and that would be legendary.
Yeah.
Larry. Yeah, right? And I mean that with all sincerity. It's just an honor and a privilege to share the platform with Larry today, and it brings back memories. I'll get to your question in just a second. It brings back memories because his son Kurt and I played high school football together, and then played 1 year of junior college ball against each other, kinda. By kinda meaning, he was on the sideline for the state championship game with a blown out knee. I was on the other sideline with a cast up to my hip with a broken tibia and fibula. So we kind of waved each other across the way. Never got to see any action in the state championship game, but a little bit of trivia there, or a little bit of history there between Nikita and the Hennings. So interesting story for me, just briefly, for some who know my story, and maybe many who don't, is unlike many of the guys who went through, like he was just describing all the different phenomenal camps, by the way. I mean, Harley Race's camp, I mean, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
right? Brad Ringen's, and then down in Florida, I mean, phenomenal camps, I have no doubt. I say that because I never went to a camp. I never went to a training center. I never went to a training site. I got a phone call from a guy by the name of Road Warrior Animal. Some of you might remember that name. And who, by the way, played for that same junior college team that was supposed to play against Kurt. But that's another side note. But I never went to a training camp. I was actually training for a pro football tryout. I rehabilitated my fractured legs. Fractured not one, but two. One my freshman year, and then one my senior year in college. And was training for a pro football tryout when Animal made a phone call to me one morning and shared a storyline of in the Mid-Atlantic Carolinas, the guy's looking for just some new life down in the Carolinas. And he shared the storyline with me of a nephew for Uncle Ivan Koloff, another legendary wrestler. And I said, well, did they understand I have no amateur wrestling background, I have no professional training, like whatsoever. I hadn't hit a ring rope at that point. And he said, yeah, that's what I told him. So he gave me the phone number to this promoter named Jim Crockett, who you probably know somewhat well.
A little bit, yes.
A little bit. And I had a 5-minute phone call with him, sight unseen, you know, no cell phones and no FaceTime back then, right? And made clear his understanding that I had not been in a ring before. Said it didn't matter, just be in his office on a certain day with my head shaved. I thought, well, I can do that. I can shave my head. And that said, I showed up the day he said to be there, walked into his office. He asked me to take my shirt off. I thought, well, that's kind of weird, but okay, I'll do that.
Job's a job.
A potential job's a job.
Job's a job, yes sir.
And they said, wait right here. Walked out, walked back in with two guys, Ivan Koloff, Don Cornotto, World Tag Champions, take a look at your new partner. That's literally what he said. And we, Nikita Koloff was born that day in the hallway. You know, I was going to be the nephew of Ivan. And they put me literally right on the interview set for hours. Don't talk, you're right off the boat. You don't speak any English. I thought, shave my head, don't talk, and I get paid. Okay, that works for me so far. The last short part of that, because there's way more to the story, but we finished the interviews. He said, be in Raleigh, North Carolina tomorrow night. You're going to wrestle on television, having never been in a ring. So we get to the building, actually got there a little late, not my fault, but they show me how to tie up and lock up in the dressing room and share with me what I'm supposed to do. And the one instruction Ivan gave me was, whatever you do, don't trip on the rope getting in the ring or your career's over. I think I can do that. I go, how hard can that be? Little did I know until you go to try and crawl in a ring if you've never done it. 11 seconds later, first win in professional wrestling on television. No training, no background in wrestling, and then there's way more to that story, but that's how I broke in.
Trained on the road by Ivan Koloff and Don Cornotto.
Yeah.
We did, and kind of on-the-job training. For those of you who've done on-the-job training, for the next 2-3 months, Ivan, Don, and I would get to the towns 2-3 hours early at least, and they get so much of the credit because they bumped all over the ring, teaching me the mechanics of wrestling. And then Ivan, I'd have a match every night, short match every night. Ivan would sit in my corner. I'd sit in their corner for the World Tag match that they'd have, and I'd observe what they did. Ivan would observe what I did, and then in the car, we would discuss the psychology of wrestling, old school psychology. So the mechanics before the match, psychology on the way home after the match. So, crazy.
Awesome. You were in the main event of the first Great American Bash in Charlotte, that big show, very early on with Ric Flair.
Yeah.
Talk about that experience.
Yeah, again, just crazy part of the career is, so that was June 4th, 1984 that I broke into professional wrestling. Within 13 months, I had become World Tag Team Champions with Ivan and Don, kind of switching the belts out, World 6-man champions, and then 13 months, almost to the day, I'm wrestling Nature Boy Ric Flair for the World Heavyweight title just 13 months into the business. And needless to say, that was a pretty phenomenal memory to think back on, and the opportunity that I was given. I feel very, very blessed and very honored to have had the opportunity.
Outside at the stadium, at the Crockett Stadium, I'm trying to think what the crowd was. A very big crowd, and I know living in that area,
Yeah.
how excited people were. And you were something of a phenomenon back then. And you were for the Crockett's, I think you were the first communist Russian trader to get a T-shirt. They sold your T-shirt even when you were a bad guy.
They did, and
I know you made a fortune off of that, by the way.
Well, I don't know about a fortune. Crockett made a fortune.
Yeah, there you go.
Crockett made a bundle. He took it all to the bank. But yeah, they would have been well to have Vince's forte, on when it come to marketing. But that said, on that note, there's only one T-shirt that day that outsold me. Take a guess.
I know they couldn't, that day. And it would have been Flair. Flair?
Yeah, Flair's shirt out. He's the only shirt to outsell him. Let's say
That
Back to
completely
that.
figures, and I would have bought both his shirts.
Yeah.
Yes. Let's switch over to Mr. Hennig?
Yeah. Let's go ahead. So Nikita was talking about wrestling Ric Flair at one point, and Ric Flair was around. Were you around Ric Flair early in his career? Do you have any Ric Flair stories?
I get a lot of stories about Ric Flair, but I can't tell them here.
We promise not to tell anyone.
Well, first of all, he's a good-hearted guy, and he has some tragedy in his family, as you know. But he was one of those loose cannons, He was always into something, whether it be bad or good. But we forgot to mention, it's not that heavy, that I have participated now in 4 Hall of Fames in the state of Minnesota, and around the world.
That's awesome.
So I'd like to have some applause for that. See how easy it is, Nikita? No, he's a good guy, good athlete. He's a good friend of my son. Our whole family, I've got, of course, Joe, and then we have 28 grandkids. Wow. And 25 of them are boys. Wow. Figure that one out. And I think one of them might be gay, I'm not sure. There's her mother or her grandmother over there, she would never say that. She's on high. We live on a lake, and I'm in charge of the barbecue, the gas, and the refrigerator. And that's what I do on weekends. Bait hooks, cuss a lot, and then I let them ride in fact, Irene, I just bought her something special. I bought her 2 new front tires for our riding lawnmower.
Very romantic.
So there's always something good going on at our house.
I understand you had a bar at the lake.
What?
That you ran a bar at your lake.
You ran a bar?
Ran a bar?
I had a bar, yes.
Yeah.
Too long.
Too long. I was told a story about you and several others going on the boat and then getting stranded. Can you tell that story?
I get stranded?
So you guys got stranded on a boat and someone maybe pulled you to shore?
Yeah, no, that might have been one of the Japanese wrestlers.
Oh, okay. We were told.
I had a bar, but we all got on a bus. Red Bastien, a couple German wrestlers, Nick Bockwinkel, Ray Stevens, and 2 of them. We went to a town, and 2 of them got married and drunk.
I would think drunk goes with it. Yeah.
In that order?
Yeah.
Did they get married for the evening or get married?
Well, when you own a bar, people, I'm in the real estate and auction business, and I can tell you, bar business is tough right now. No one can compete. You buy 2 hamburgers for $4. How the hell can a restaurant survive? You know, you can't do it. But anyway, Kyle has been really a good friend here, and I met so many nice people, and I think that to keep an institution like this on its wheels, you got to be working and hustling all the time. And I'm here, and if I can help, that's what I want to do.
Awesome. I think
Thank you, Larry. Yeah. Good shout out to Kyle.
it's always a big highlight for us to come of the summer.
You weren't done?
Well, let me ask you a question.
You have another question?
Yeah, talk about your team with the Harley Race. Your tag team with Harley Race, the big stars.
Harley Race?
Yes, sir.
Oh, shit, that is going to take me all day to do that.
That's kind of the idea. So,
That's okay.
yeah, that's fine.
Well, you haven't lived until you thought his driving was bad here. We were in Australia, and that's when you drive on the other side of the highway. I said, Harley, I've got a family, I've got children. What are you doing, trying to kill me here? You know, he'd drive 30 miles an hour on a blacktop, and when he got on the gravel, he'd drive 130 miles an hour. I said, what the hell is wrong with you? But that was just one incident. But I can tell you that there was no one as tough and as mean. You know, he had no actually wrestling background, but just a plain tough kid from Missouri. And I mean, he was tough, and he feared nobody. You don't care who it was or how. And he was a good friend of mine, and he's still a friend of mine. And we talk frequently, but he was in a nursing home now for a while. And I think he just got out of there, and then he got hurt again. But as time goes on, he's going to become even more popular, because when they find out, he should do a book. I see some of these wrestling books are so boring that it's unbelievable. But some of them are really good, but I'm just saying, I cannot say one bad word about Harley Race ever. He's my friend now, and he'll be my friend forever. Thank you.
Amen.
One of the best teams of the 60s.
Yeah.
Talk about in the ring and out of the ring and with Terry Allen, Magnum TA. Because it's such an emotional ride for us watching.
Yeah, that was thinking back. In fact, Terry and I talk all the time. Just talked the other day. He still lives in Charlotte, and as I do, just outside of Charlotte. So we've stayed in touch over the years, done some business together over the years, done some autograph signings together over the years. Of course, obviously, the natural there is the best of 7 series. Yeah, thank you. That's so many. That's I probably hear that from the fans. That series of matches, more than anything else. is the best of 7 versus Magnum. And you know, it's unfortunate that he of course had the wreck, and because he was being groomed. You know, we were talking about Ric Flair earlier. It was clear that Magnum was being groomed to be the next, you know, world heavyweight champion, and really kind of take the reins from Rick at some point. And so very tragic, those who know the story of what happened. And so I feel fortunate that I was in a position and offered a position to step in where a void had happened because of his wreck. And came back from a tour in Japan, and I was in Philadelphia. I remember Philadelphia when Jim Crockett and Dusty told me what had happened. You know, wrestling's, they say wrestling's a work. I wish they would have told me that like years ago, you know, when I was in the ring. It was my attempt at humor there, okay, but Larry probably knows this terminology. I was sometimes termed the crowbar. Somebody probably knows that terminology, but I enjoyed working.
That up another joke.
Thank you, Larry. You see, I wish I had Larry's sense of humor. Okay, next time I make an attempt, can you read that? Laugh. But I think Larry missed his calling, actually. He should have been a stand-up comedian is what Larry should have been. But that said, so I feel very fortunate to have had the opportunity to step into where there was a void. And you know, you mentioned earlier about the first commie Russian, you know, selling record numbers of T-shirts, and then a commie Russian becoming a babyface, right? Like, who would have thunk it, right? As they say in the South. But it was a brilliant idea that I felt that Jimmy and Dusty came up with, and then given me that opportunity to step into that role, which someone just posted recently. A clip of the turn in Charlotte.
It's
Were you there in Charlotte?
I was not there, but that's one of those TV memories I can remember going, what? Because I just didn't see, you know, why would you market a communist as a good guy? And it worked beautifully.
Well, and you couldn't, in the way it was done, I don't know that you could do it today, you know, obviously with the advent of the internet and all of that, but it was at the time really one of the best kept secrets in wrestling, if that's possible, at the time. There were only a handful that knew it was happening until the night of.
The moment that you walked into the cage, Dusty's already there fighting the forces of the Four Horsemen, and you walked into the cage, and then you paused like you weren't going to help him. I thought that was like the key thing, and then you rushed in. I thought that was like the little things. I thought that was so well done.
Yeah, and I appreciate it. Intentional, obviously, you know, because I wanted to, you know, when I walked out of the dressing room, out of the babyface dressing room, you know, the place kind of went silent except for the music that was playing.
Right.
It was incredible memory because, you know, walking the aisle, you know, it was just building the anticipation of what was going to happen. Up until the point of stepping over the railings and pausing for a moment there.
Right.
Walking up, as you're referring to, and stepping into the cage door and pausing again.
Right, yes.
Just to build a crescendo of what was going to happen. And then tearing across the ring into Ole, it just erupted.
Yeah, you and Dusty Rhodes as the Superpowers before there were Mega Powers. Y'all were big box office business for a good while after that.
It did. It did. About a year and a half. Essentially, anywhere we went, regardless of the size of the building, it was pretty much a sellout for a good year and a half there. And then to have you know, Magnum, you know, and the Crockett Cup in Baltimore come out to the ring was incredibly emotional for the fans. And then for me, I think what turned it so strong was Pro Wrestling Illustrated Bill Apter doing a magazine cover with just like a headshot and like a tear coming down.
Yes.
You know, that cry a tear for Magnum TA, and that just
the two hated rivals that had a bond. Yeah,
correct.
That's a great story.
And now we're friends to this day. How about that? It worked out. So anyway.
Larry, I want to.
Wake up, Larry.
The Nikita talked about the crowd response and
What?
the response of a crowd and how little subtle body movements and pauses or body language can totally take the crowd on a roller coaster ride. Talk about how you worked off of the crowd in terms of the energy, and if you have some special memories of perhaps the biggest crowd response you got for something that you did that that you were kind of proud for the rest of the night about something that you did or something that collectively you did that really got a great response.
That's enough.
It's not just me.
We're playing tic-tac-toe over here. I beat him 4 games in a row. Let me tell you the greatest thrill. Vern Gagne and I didn't get along. He was really but he was a little different promoter because he was a wrestler and he wanted to be champion for the rest of his life. And I didn't like him and I didn't like what he did. I still talk about him today. In fact, I went to his funeral and I stood there in front of the deal, and he told me one time in the ring, I gave him a knee and cracked 3 of his ribs, and as the air was going out of his lungs, he says, "You finally got me, you fat prick." I said, "You got the broken ribs, not me." So I said the same thing at his funeral. I know I shouldn't have done that. My wife turned my butt out for it. Greg Gagne got mad at me. Jim Brunzell got mad at me. Bob Backlund don't know what the hell happened. We've had a lot of strange wrestlers too, you know. Take a guy like the Destroyer. I saw him at the Cauliflower Alley Club. I said, "Dick, stand up. I'm going to tell you something right now, Dick Byers. You all know who the Destroyer is." I said, "It's over. You got to take that mask off sometime." I said, you know, but that wasn't the bad part. I said, I went in the toilet, went into one of the stalls, and there he's sitting there with his mask on. I said, "Christ, you know, when you go to the bathroom, you can take it off." But, what was the question?
Big crowd response. What stands out as the biggest crowd response that you remember getting for a match or an angle that you're involved in?
I think one of the best matches I had was probably with Billy Robinson. Billy was a good mechanic. He came from England, of course, most of you know that. He's passed on now. Joe Scarpello, Otto Vance, I went to several times. I brought Irene with me, and I don't know how this ever happened. I went to get something to drink, and I ended up in a nudist colony. And I brought this girl back with me because I didn't think anybody would believe me. She stands up and pops those things out and she says, "You want photo?" Irene says, "I'll give you a photo." She was younger then and got mad easier. But the question is matches, and it's really hard for me to say what was my best match because I never had a bad match. I feed my family and had a new car, had a nice house, had a beautiful wife. I had much money in the bank. That was during the old days. After you get to a certain point, that doesn't happen as often. But I do have a real estate and an auction company and an appraisal company, and I'm still very active in that. And thank God I got that. Because when it's over, gentlemen, it's over. I've been in the hospital, out of the hospital, had my knees done, had my brain looked at. They had a problem there, they couldn't find it. But No, I just enjoy wrestling. I enjoy, it's an honor for me to be in the Hall of Fame. And to be in 4 Hall of Fames for me is a gift from God. So, you did bring the collection plates with you? Did you say yes or no?
Can you rank the Hall of Fame's favorite to least favorite?
Thank you very much.
Nikita, just to connect the Minnesota connection that you and Larry have a little more, that was at the beginning of your career, but you got to come to the AWA and wrestle late in the AWA's run a little bit. Any memories of ultimately going full circle and working for Vern and working in front of a Minnesota crowd, mostly in Rochester?
Yeah, mostly Rochester, because what Jim Crockett and Gagne were doing at the time was co-promotions. And so a lot of like shows in the Meadowlands and some of the bigger markets, they were kind of bringing talent together for a handful of shows anyway. I don't know how, they didn't do that for a long time, but that opened the door for me to come, and really I was, in a sense, kind of on loan from Crockett to Vern to do some of the TV tapings that you're talking about down in Rochester, you know, wrestle against Zabisco and some of the other guys, and so it was a fun experience, although, you know, we came up here as the NWA to Minneapolis as well, and so a number of times. So it was a great experience. You know, I mentioned, you talk about the Minnesota connection. I mentioned going to high school with Kurt. Some know this, but not only did Kurt and I go to high school together and play football together, but so did Ravishing Rick Rude. We were on the same football team. Barry Darso was on the same football team. John Nord, remember if some of you know Nord, the Berserker, and was on the same football team. And then 2 other guys that were in school at the same time, but not on the same football team, were Tom Zink, the Z-Man, and probably maybe the lesser known Brady Boone. Wrestled as Brady Boone down the NWA and did some refereeing, etc. So there were actually 7 of us, essentially all in high school at the same time, that ended up in professional wrestling, and the majority of them, you know, I mean, really all of them pretty decent careers in pro wrestling. So yeah, interesting.
Did you have the privilege of dealing much with Vern directly and get to know him? I'm sure he had a reputation that preceded him a bit.
He did, yeah. You know, listen to Larry tell a couple of stories. You know, kind of a tough negotiator, but yeah, so he was around. Greg was kind of running things more, but Vern was there, and so didn't have, you know, a tremendous amount of it. Certainly not the interaction that Larry may have had, but nevertheless, still, you know, got some experience around him, and so yeah.
I got one. I'm going to be selling pictures. I want to get that in before my wife is my certified accountant. And I've got a picture of Donald Trump, the President of the United States, myself, and who's the other guy in the picture? Bret Hart. And it's done real nice so it can be framed with the date and everything on it. So when you go by there, I would like for you to see it, and then I'd like for you to buy it. But take a look at it. How many times are you going to have an opportunity like this? And Nikita and I both will sign them, but I'm not giving them a cut of anything.
So you did learn from Vern.
He's so busy down there shaking hands that the heat's not going to bother him anyway.
Mr. Hennig, you also toured Japan, I know, with Luthez. Do you have any memories of the differences working in Japan and how you were treated and how Japanese wrestling is so strong in that culture?
Just a minute, I got to turn my hearing aid up.
Talk about working in Japan with Luthez.
I had it off till that time, so tell me, ask me again.
Yes, sir. Talk about working in Japan on tour with Luthez. And just your work in Japan too, because you were an international star.
Talk about your work in Japan with Luthez.
Oh, God, that was a great story. One of the greatest guys in the business. If you looked at a champion, Vern Gagne, and you looked at Luthez, there was no comparison. I'm not knocking Vern, but I have to do it. If you compare them to black and white, Luthez was by far the best of them all. Gentleman, good technical wrestler, good attitude. He had everything as far as I was concerned, and God bless him. And him and his wife and Irene she always brings me cookies. Isn't that nice?
Yay, cookies.
I got a bigger hand for cookies than I did for Vern Gagne. Unbelievable.
And Donald Trump.
Now what are we talking about? I'll be celebrating in another month and a half my 83rd birthday.
That is awesome.
And we've been married 63 years.
Wow.
And
Wow, awesome.
You married her when she was 10?
5.
Or 5? I'm sorry.
Did you marry her when she was 10?
yeah, she was 10. She was 9.
5.
No, but we've been around a long time, and we got some beautiful. You cannot believe how good looking our kids and grandkids are. And I want to say something about Kurt here too.
Yeah.
Kurt, we had 3 boys and 2 girls. Is that right, Emmy?
Yes.
She hesitated.
But I'm going to tell you something. Whether you people know it or followed wrestling, Kurt, or you can ask Nikita, he was one of the greatest athletes in the world. He could do anything. I'll tell you a story about him and Wade Boggs, who's in the Baseball Hall of Fame. They were doing those vignettes, those things, hit the ball, play golf, do the, basketball, all that stuff. So they go to the ball field at Yankee Stadium, and he was along. So he says, Kurt, I'll tell you what I'll do. He says, they'll throw me the ball, I'll hit it, and then we'll catch a picture of you swinging the bat, and then you look over like you just hit a home run, okay? Kurt says, you don't have to do that. Knock 3 of them out of the park.
Wow.
And he said, where the hell did you come from? But I mean, that's how natural he was. He hit a golf ball before 300 yards were even talking about it. I mean, can't say enough. And all my grandkids are doing good. They're good wrestlers. Girls are good volleyball players, a couple of them. So we've been blessed, really blessed.
Did Joe Curtis Axel always have his eye on being a professional wrestler and following in his dad's footsteps?
I don't really think so. I think that towards when Kurt got a little older and stuff, he started thinking about it, and then he started going to Brad Riggins' camp. And you people know who Brad Riggins is?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
He's the toughest little shit you ever saw. Hey, I'm kidding. Ask Nikita, he'll tell you. If you go in there at 5'4", you come out at 6'4". Stretch you right out like this. But yes,
That's awesome.
we've been blessed. I got a car now that I get 40 miles a gallon, Thought you might be interested in that. And she won't let me drive anymore.
I think it's a,
Drive a million miles in my career, and she says, I better drive. So after 62 years, what are you going to tell them?
Say no.
No.
Oh, that's good.
But I want to say something about Nikita too. And Nikita trained hard, worked hard, and we were at a time when you had to do it. You got to pay the price. There's no shortcut. Shortcut people don't make it, and that's in any business. You got to work hard and do what you do and do the best you can. And I was fortunate that. My trouble was that I didn't like promoters, and that's a bad thing to do if you're a wrestler. But anyway, ask me something funny. Think about that.
just think about it for a second. All right, promoters. What was the biggest crook you ever worked for? Who was the biggest crook you ever worked for?
The most dishonest promoter. Besides Vern.
Got it. Let's see. Stu Hart wasn't a big spender. Some people they're not crooks, but they don't want to separate with their money. They pour the milk at the top, and the cream comes out on one side, and the skim milk comes out on the other side. Guess what side the wrestlers got? I'm talking about the old days. No, I'm not talking about Vince McMahon or they always were fair to me. But the biggest crook, I think there's a little larceny in them all. They want to make things go, and so the only thing a guy can say anything bad about is Vern. And I'm not going to talk about him anymore because I don't give a shit.
Yeah. So, same question. Dealing with promoters, either honest or not so honest.
Yeah, no, that's I can relate to it, especially the old school format of wrestling, because again, prior to technology and all of that, right? They sell tickets at the 7-Eleven, and so it's much easier in terms of when it comes to counting tickets.
To fudge.
Yeah, counting the seats. Early on, I was told I learned two nicknames on the what I would say the dishonest side. One, his name was High Pockets Henry. That was the promoter's nickname. And then there were two brothers that were known as Frank and Jesse James.
First one in South Carolina.
Which ironically, I just passed through Northfield, the great bank robbery. I love history. So anyway,
yes,
ironically. But on a more positive note, okay, I will mention two actual names that for me I felt like in terms of delivering the best payoffs and outside of Jim Crockett, who took good care of me, was Don Owens up in Oregon, up in the Northwest, really took, I felt, good care. And another guy out of Baltimore named Gary Juster. In fact, Gary was so honest. If I told him once, I told him several times, I go, dude, you're in the wrong business. You're too good a guy to be in this business. But
he's still in the business.
I just recently understood that, heard that and understood that. But
works with the Ring of Honor.
Yeah, it's amazing. But Gary took such really good care, I felt. So Gary Juster, Don Owens, as far as I was concerned, behind Jim Crockett, two of the best that took good care of me anyway.
Your time in the Koloffs, you had the heat. Can you talk about any wild experiences, maybe atmosphere, people really mad in the ring, or?
A couple quick stories. I mean, we had, again, Cold War era, right? The Dirty Russian from Initially the character, you know, choking people with chains, hanging people with chains. I mean, you know, beating them up after the 1, 2, 3, after the bell, you know, and just to build the heat that you're referring to. And so there were more than one occasion that the office got phone calls in those days, death threats, you know, for the Koloffs to show up, and of course, you know, Crockett's like, oh, we'll just beef up security, you'll be fine, you know. And I didn't really think much of it, but I had a half a dozen matches, you know, where the fans actually got in the ring. In fact, you made reference to one of them
Great
already.
American Bash. Yeah,
Great American Bash. That wasn't part of the ad, folks.
Yeah.
That was, in fact, it was interesting because I remember that night, and you know, the numbers kind of vary, but the number was anywhere from 25 to 35,000 in attendance, you
Right.
know, depending on who you talk to.
Yeah. This, by the way, you can find a clip of this on the WWE Network, or what he's talking about, or on YouTube, and you can see the fan do what he's talking.
Yeah, this is the very first time that
Yeah.
it had happened, you know, and Rick's down selling the ring, Ivan's standing down on the floor. I see David Crockett, who's the special referee, in the corner of my eye, and somebody's got me in a waistlock, and I'm like, I don't remember this part, you know.
Process of elimination. You see what everybody else
I'm
is.
thinking to myself, and then it basically dawned on me. I'm like, I think this is a fan, right? And so then I started, as I'd go to try to grab him one way, this little cat would like duck one way, and then he'd duck the other way, and then finally the cops, they look like the Keystone cops, come in and finally figure out, I don't think this guy's part of the deal.
Right.
Maybe we should get him out of here.
Yeah.
And so they did, and but that was one of about a half a dozen matches that I had. Magnum TA was the other one. We were actually near his hometown in Norfolk, Virginia, Norfolk Scope Coliseum, when a military guy came in after me.
I know my time watching you guys and going to all the shows, we always used to just be amazed that no one jumped in on like the bulkies. They would jump in on big bastards like you, and you're like, what are you thinking about exactly? It's like, how do you think this is going to go? And it never went well for them.
I think they were under the influence of a couple bottles of courage, I'm thinking, along the way there.
Might be.
But perhaps.
Yes, sir. I also wanted to ask you, you had a reality TV show, Preacher's Daughter?
I did. Well, my daughter had a I was just a cameo appearance.
No, you were cameo. No, you were a major part of that.
Well, it was centered around her, though. And you can still, I think, go on Netflix and catch it. But it's centered around my youngest daughter, Colby, and kind of the daughter of, what's it like to be the daughter of a preacher? So, you know, since I left wrestling in 1993, gave my life to Christ, I became a minister and an evangelist, and I travel all over the world, been to 28 different countries now, and 1,500 churches, and I'll speak locally here Sunday night at, I should know it, but...
Just say First Baptist, and that'll cover a lot.
I hear you, it's not, but anyway, I'll be speaking here Sunday night locally at 6 o'clock, but and so the show just centered around her life and what that life was like, and the idea of it originally, the first season was to understand that, hey, even though you're the daughter of a preacher, you know, you're still under the, you know, you still have the same challenges as anyone else, and et cetera. And so she did that for 2 years. The whole family was involved in it, all of the daughters, and yeah, everyone was involved in it, and it parlayed her into a wonderful music career and speaking career now in Nashville, Tennessee. So it's pretty cool.
Larry, Nikita was just talking about fans running into the ring sometimes when they were not supposed to. Do you have some stories of fending off fans who maybe had a couple bottles of courage in them?
My surprise, yes, I do have a couple of stories. West Palm Beach, Harley and I were in a tag team match, and we're sitting in the hall. They played hockey in this arena, and we were in the hallway there watching another match, and all of a sudden, I think Harley then was wrestling Pedro Morales. You kind of get the picture about the Cubans and Puerto Ricans and Mexicans, and it was full of, and the match got out of hand, and Harley was the first one to hit the ring. The fans were coming in the ring. And I was standing there and I had my towel and there was from the hockey game, they left a puck laying on the floor there. I put the puck inside the towel and I hit the ring. And I hit this one fat Mexican in the head with the towel, with the puck in the ring, in the towel. Is that right? And the thing came back and hit me in the nose. I knocked myself out and Harley says, I think I can do this by myself. I got up, I was so mad, I hit the son of a bitch again, and I hit myself twice. And that's it, Harley, I'm out of here. There's a story for you. My nose all swelled up like this here. The guy said, what happened to you? I said, you don't want to know. But I'll tell you about a payoff one time. I wrestled, Harley and I wrestled the Bruiser and Crusher in the Amphitheater in Chicago. It was sold out. And went back, we got our money, and $1,000, I think it was. And 2 nights later, I wrestled in Winnipeg. And Gagne side hinged me and broke my left knee. Harley, I drove back from Winnipeg with that knee tore out. It took me to the hospital. And that was like on a Wednesday or a Thursday. And I was in a room with another guy there, and then they had a rematch going in Chicago with the Bruiser and the Crusher. Wally Carbo and Vern Gagne came to my room and said, Larry, you gotta go to Chicago. And I was due for the surgery the next day. So I said, okay, I'll go. And I went, and the guy in the bed next to me says, where are you going? I said, I'm going to Chicago to wrestle. You gotta be kidding. He said, no. Anyway, we used a wheelchair and crutches. I got there, made it up to the ring. I never got in the ring, but I got on the ring, did some damage out there. And the house, they raised the prices and the house was even bigger than it was the time before. And I said, well, I guess this has got to be a good payoff. Gave me $50 more than he gave me the rehearsal match. And I got mad as hell and I went to the wrestling office and I made some kindling wood out of some stuff in there. And they gave me a check with a 0 on it. Then told me what I got to get, and they gave me a 0. So that was kind of a, get a guy out of the hospital, and he cared about the business. Got on an airplane, went to Chicago, went from their locker room to the ring, and then they give you $50 more. So I wasn't very happy about that.
I understand that.
I get that. Seriously, those are things that sometimes the fans probably wouldn't know or don't know, and I'm certain, Larry. I got good at kind of counting those, because in those days, guys, and essentially they had their formulas or whatever, however they figured that out. We were paid by who was in the seat, not on some guaranteed contract. So the more people in the building, the more people in the seat, it's supposed to be the bigger the payoff, especially where you were on the card. And so, like Larry's talking about, there'd be times the promoter bring the number in, and I'm like, you're kidding me. Like, I'd be main event against Ric Flair or something, and you know, I'm not a mathematician, but I can count well enough to know that the number they gave was about half of the crowd size, if you follow what I'm saying there. And that wasn't everyone, but it was certainly some of them. So you can ask a question.
Yeah, Mr. Hennig talked about the destroyer Dick Beyer in Japan and wherever he went, and to this day protecting his business, protecting his gimmick, wearing the mask to the point of absurdity maybe in some people's eyes. But and I know that Ivan Koloff was in character. If he was ordering at Burger King, he was ordering, not in Russian, but he sounded like Ivan Koloff, and you were a real stickler for that. Talk about how you felt about, and I think you even learned, I mean, I don't know what it means, but Zhatoata, I know for
Zhatoata.
Zhatoata is the only Russian I know. And Niet, yeah.
Umenie что бред? Нет, хорошо?
Niet.
You speak no Russian?
No,
Yeah,
no,
me
Niet.
either.
Yeah.
Sounded like it, though, didn't it? Right?
Yeah.
Like, oh, he really, you know. Yeah, I mean, again, being trained up by Ivan and Don, and then of course some of the other Dusty Rhodes, some of the other guys that I was fortunate to be in the ring with, Ricky Steamboat and others. You know, I developed an old school mentality, and so I didn't. Obviously, I haven't carried it to the degree that that Dick has. However, I developed the accent over a number of months. I listened to Russian tapes. I learned put a few phrases together. Learned to sign my name in Russian. Came to Minneapolis and legally changed my name to Nikita Koloff. And then the accent that I developed, like Ivan, I talked with that accent for anywhere outside of the car we drove in, or the place I lived in, and even some of the dressing rooms. I would talk with that accent anywhere and everywhere, 24/7, and even like up to after I left the wrestling business, walked away. For about 3 years after I left, just protecting the character, protecting the gimmick, before I just eventually phased it out and had some good English tutoring and talked like I do now, and so, yeah, it was important to me to protect the character, to protect the business, protect that persona that I was developing, and it's super important to me.
Yeah. I think that natural reaction in situations much better than the micromanaged things that we see today many times. So.
Larry, Nikita just talked about working on his Russian accent to seem authentic. How often did you work on your Minnesota accent to seem authentic?
That's the dumbest question in
He's got
I
more.
haven't figured out how you got this job.
He's been asking me dumb questions for 14 years.
I was out for football when I was a sophomore, and the wrestling coach, John Gergalko, who is a good friend of, he's 90 now. We're still good friends. And I got a letter as a sophomore. I beat the right tackle out made all conference. And my senior year, after wrestling, I went out for basketball. And John Gergalko come over and he said, "Larry," he said, "I want you to wrestle." And he made a man out of me. He made me tough. And first year, my sophomore year, I took third in the state. First time I ever wrestled, and then I was state champion. That's how my career started. And if it wouldn't be for John Gergalko, I wouldn't be here today. And what was the rest of the question?
I'm curious if did he coach Kurt as well in high school, Gergalko? Kurt had the same coach?
Kurt started with him, and so did Randy, my oldest boy.
Okay.
And then he finished Kurt. We moved. I had a place in Arizona, so he finished football and wrestling in Arizona. And then, of course, he came back and played over here.
Yeah. It was interesting, 'cause you just jogged a memory. Grigelko, when you said that name, I'm like, the high school wrestling coach at Robbinsdale, because he wanted me to go out for wrestling, and my concept at the time, you know, I thought, give me a helmet and shoulder pads, let me knock somebody's head off, you know, and I thought, this is just my thinking, you know, the idea of two like sweaty guys grabbing each other in their little leotards, you know, didn't appeal to me, you know, that's just my mindset, right? And Coach Grigelko wasn't very appreciative of my willingness to not go out for the wrestling team, and he was a PE teacher as well.
You get quite a record, you know.
Yeah. Oh no, he was phenomenal. He was phenomenal. I just didn't have any interest in it, but I remember I was not his class favorite after telling him no.
Well, I'm kind of glad I did, because in basketball I kept hitting my head on the rim. So I had to back off of that.
That was a great memory. Grigelko.
You two guys do this for a living? What, you do this every day?
Every day. Day in, day out, every day.
Well, God bless you for that.
Gotta make a living.
All right, we are at our 1 hour mark here, so I want to thank Nikita Koloff, Hall of Fame, 4-time Hall of Famer. That's when people hold up 4 fingers.
Not 4 horsemen, 4-time Hall of Famer.
Hall of Fame. Larry the Axe Hennig, a legend. And we're so pleased that they spent an hour with us. I hope you are too. Thank you for coming and supporting this Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame weekend in Waterloo, Iowa. Keep spreading the word, and let's give a thanks to Bruce Mitchell for most of what he said, except mean things about me.
Pictures with the President of the United States and autograph, and see, give us a plug.
Let's sell some pictures, okay? Donald Trump. You know, come on. Let's show some support for Larry here later on with those photos.
He didn't tell us who the funny-looking people are. He said he was going to tell us at the end.
Oh yeah. Do you want to pick out who the funny-looking people are in the crowd? Someone wants to know if he qualifies. So you can just stand up and he'll tell you.
Well, I'll tell you something right now. I'm really handicapped. What did you want to know again?
Who the funny-looking people in the crowd are?
At the beginning, you said it's a nice-looking crowd and some funny people, and you would say so at the end of the show. Who the ones were that were funny-looking?
Stumped. I think that you are, people like you and myself, are wrestling fans now, wrestling fans then, and you'll always be wrestling fans. So for me, you're the people that got me to 28 grandkids. You spend your hard-working money, go to the matches, and are loyal, and you live for wrestling like I live, only in a different way. So I want to say this: God bless you all, and I know God will. I've got a direct line with him, and he told me the other day that I'm still in the loop. So I want to include you guys in the loop also. But thank you, and God bless you all. Thank you.
Wade and Bruce, I just want to ditto what Larry said. I mean, you know, I feel the same sentiments that I think you guys are the greatest on the planet, and certainly the most loyal fans anywhere on the planet. And so thank you. I just want to say thank you. Thank you guys for the opportunity to interview. Thank you guys for coming out and letting us share some of our life with you. Thank you guys.
That is a wrap. Thanks, everybody. You're allowed to leave now.